So we're looking at lots of news this week, but arguably the biggest is the PlayStation 5 is getting a price hike in
Let me
a
actually
large
find the
number of
blog.
regions. Um,
PlayStation.
so this was announced at a suspiciously very late time for like American news cycle. And so it kind of like was left to fester for half a day before
Mm.
it was really picked up. But basically, Sony is raising the price of the PlayStation 5 in key markets. According to Windows Central here, some price hikes run as high as 20% or more in some regions. I think one of the worst affected regions is Europe, where it is literally going up by 50 euros. So
Mm.
the disc version goes from 500 euros to 550, which is phenomenal.
Mm.
Um, and the regions affected are Europe, so that is a collection of countries,
Yeah.
the United Kingdom, Japan, China, Australia, Mexico, and Canada. The US is omitted apparently because of the strong performing dollar, which, of course, that is the case because when the world is in a recession and everyone depends on the dollar, of course, the dollar is going to be
Just fine.
performed pretty well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, listen, the world is in some economic hurt right now.
Mm.
If you've been paying attention to any sort of news, the UK is experiencing astronomical price increases on things like electricity, people paying
Mm.
close to 500% more month on month for
Oof.
just electricity, which you need, that is a basic need. So I think a small increase to a PlayStation is not really on the top of people's minds when it comes
No.
to can I afford to eat or afford
To
heating in the
live.
winter,
Yeah.
type of thing. Um, but this just seems, you know, Sony's struggled with keeping the PlayStation 5 in stock globally.
Mm.
And there's this real attitude, I feel, that no matter what price they will sell at, they will sell. And that's what scalpers have been doing.
Yeah.
And I do agree that probably Sony, being a much smaller company than, say, Microsoft, probably feels the need to do this to, keep up with their margins because they
Mm.
sell the consoles at a profit. But at the same time, passing these costs onto the consumer is something that is counter to all of their competition.
Mm.
As we see during the week, Microsoft said that they will not follow suit and increase the price of the Xbox Series X or the Series S.
Yeah.
And Nintendo
Nintendo
actually
also did, yeah.
a few months ago, they reiterated it this week, but it was a few months ago Nintendo came out and said that the Nintendo Switch is actually costing more to produce because of the current global economic landscape and
Mm.
the scarcity of components and the rising costs of production, but that they would not pass that cost on to consumers. Now,
Yeah.
that could be because, well, they are just selling an astronomical number, so the volume makes
It
sense.
doesn't matter, yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, Nintendo is a games only company.
Mm.
So when you want to compare Sony to Nintendo, that is a more apples to apples comparison as opposed to a Sony and a Microsoft, where Microsoft is a much bigger company that can maybe afford to absorb this cost a bit better than,
Yeah.
Sony, where the PlayStation is their moneymaker. Um, but yeah, for Nintendo to be like, no, we're not doing this, or to be very explicit and say we aren't pushing this onto the consumer, makes Sony look like they are, yes, suffering from a profit perspective, but also acknowledging that they can get away with this,
Yeah.
which seems a bit shitty. And I guess that's where a lot of the anger is coming from consumers being like, why are you the only people doing this?
Mm.
Why are we being forced to pay the price for this? And that kind of sucks. So um, I would say that if you are able to get a PlayStation 5 now
Do
and you've been
it.
looking to do so, do it. There haven't been confirmed price increases for South Africa yet, but I would
I'm
assume,
pretty sure it's gonna happen though.
yeah, I'm almost certain it's going to happen given that all of Europe has gone up. It's going to happen. And if it's 50 euros,
That's gonna be
I can see anything between a grand and a
grand and a
half
half.
increase locally.
Mm. Yeah, I think
So
from 11
that
triple nine
puts
to like
things in a precarious position because now you've suddenly got an Xbox Series X at 12 grand, potentially a PS5 at 13 and a half.
mm,
And you've got the fact that Games Pass is just a much, much better deal than,
PlayStation Plus,
PlayStation
yeah.
Plus in
Plus
every
plus.
regard. So, it's always been this idea of, okay, well, you're either choosing between PlayStation Plus or, Sony's undisputedly much better exclusives in many regards. But now you've also got to factor in a potential $1.5 to $2,000, fee on top of that. That's and then you look at something like the Series S, which is $7,000, half the price of a PlayStation 5 potentially with Game Pass.
Yeah, it's base entry level.
Microsoft is in a good position now. I will just say that. Like the Series S is. I don't think Microsoft would have predicted the Series S would have been in this position, but boy, I'm sure they are glad they went that route.
Yeah,
Because it is the thing that is selling for them now.
It's just weird that I think every time this comes up in news, like any talk of Sony and Xbox, it feels that Sony's done something stupid and Xbox just looks even better. And again,
Sony's making mistakes this gen. Like it's undisputed, and a lot of them are unforced. Like, yes, COVID had an impact on them, but they have not adapted in the same way that Microsoft and Nintendo have to offer consumer quality, as opposed to just being like, hey guys, the world is shit, sorry, put our hands up, this is what it is. You know what I mean? It just, it seems real crap that the week before The Last of Us Part 1 comes out, which I'm pretty sure is going to be phenomenal, and I'm really excited to play it. And I feel bad that Naughty Dog has had to weather the storm of this argument on whether it's worth $70 or not. But I tend to agree with this, like Sony is being like, this is a $70 game. It is a remaster or a remake of a game with no fundamental gameplay changes and without its multiplayer. And also now we're increasing the price of our console by $50. And also our, subscription service isn't on par with the competition.
Yeah.
But it costs the same. It just, at what point does a person go, well, this is enough. Like, I'm just not going to buy a PlayStation.
I think it's not going to happen like right now, but over the next few years, I think we're going to be very surprised by how well Microsoft does. And not because I don't believe Microsoft's doing the right things, just because Microsoft just could not keep up with Sony last gen.
Yeah. So, and this is a long-term play. The whole subscription model idea is a long-term play. Like the longer and longer Sony doesn't understand how to get on board with it, or doesn't offer something that is just as valuable but counter. Like they don't have to do a subscription model, but their value proposition needs to be on par.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they need to have a console that is, not necessarily affordable, but alluring enough that the cost makes sense. But right now, it's just not adding up yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm curious to see how this shakes out. I mean, at the end of the day, PlayStation 5 is still almost impossible to buy. So people are buying it. So clearly people still want it. And in a way, that's probably why Sony thinks they can get away with this. But for how long, we'll see. Curious.
In other wild news this week, for a hot day, it was reported that Amazon it was rumored that Amazon were going to buy EA. Turns out that's not the case. I mean,
well, at least
for now,
it's not the case for now. Yeah.
I don't know where this rumor actually came from, but it just
this was a wild story. So it was a Swedish website called Good Luck Have Fun, GLHF, who is syndicated by USA Today, which is spearheaded by Kirk McKinnon. He's a pretty big games writer. He's been editor at a couple of websites and done very, very good things there. He was at VG 24/7, then he was at The Gamer, now he's at USA Today. Basically, they put out a report saying that they've had sources that say that a bid is going to be made by Amazon for Electronic Arts, and that it would be announced on Friday. And very soon after that, CNBC, a network cable news whatever in America, their financial board said that is super not happening, and they were very snide about it. Like the comments are very unprofessional from CNBC, but that's another story altogether. But they basically said that is not happening today. And then a few hours later, USA Today, who syndicates, content from Good Luck Have Fun, they basically came out and said that they were removing the story or editing the story because the sources had not met their editorial standards, which is wild because they're essentially throwing their syndicated content like under the bus. Basically saying that the article went up when it shouldn't have, this, and that. So it seems like the rumor that spurred all this on was not well vetted. It didn't come from very reliable sources, and yeah, we know for a fact that the bid was never made by Amazon on EA. The stock rose considerably at first and then came down to almost like a break even, so it didn't really affect the stock price, and it was all pre-market stock price stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there was a report in May that EA had held talks with Amazon and Apple and Disney over a potential sale, and these talks happen all the time. Like just because people are talking doesn't mean
anything's
shit.
actually happening. It just was so left field though yesterday.
Yeah, it was. It just came out of nowhere. It was just like this report.
Amazon's
Amazon's going to buy them,
definitely buying EA, reportedly.
I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense. Like Amazon purchasing EA, yeah. Microsoft purchasing Activision, yeah. I mean, Amazon has Luna. They've got the streaming service. So if they purchase an EA, suddenly they've got this library of games that they can just chuck on there. Like, it makes sense. Like, I mean, out of the three, if you think Amazon, Apple, and Disney, Amazon would be the one that makes the most sense.
It would fit the best, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, it's not impossible that it still happens.
So yeah, maybe not happening this week or this weekend, whatever, but in the near future, like
although
maybe...
I did see another analyst that said that there's a precedent set by Amazon that if rumors of a deal make it out while actual negotiations of a deal are happening, Amazon will just kill the deal. They'll be like, we're not doing this anymore.
Really?
And it's actually happened before. So
what?
Weird.
What were they acquiring that it was killed?
I think it was some like medicinal pharmaceutical company. And like word of a bid got out beforehand and they just nuked the deal. They were like, we're not doing this anymore.
That's so weird.
Yeah. Wild.
Ish.
Very, very weird. Yeah.
Wow.
But also like it seems a bit suspect that the announcement was that Amazon would be making a bid. Normally you only hear these things when the two companies have agreed.
Actually agree on something, yeah.
We've accepted this bid, So like because companies can make bids on other public companies whenever the hell they want. Whether it's accepted or not is an entirely different story. So weird rumor, but
there we go. Yeah. Well,
I still think EA is going to be sold to someone.
To someone. I also think so.
Yeah.
In other big news this week, we usually headline with this, but because the Sony stuff is so wild and the Amazon stuff, Gamescom happened this week. Good old gaming show in Cologne in Germany, and
I miss it so much.
I miss being there. Yeah, it was actually quite nice to see that. Feels like this is the first proper in-person gaming event that's happened since COVID. It was quite something to see everyone tweeting from the event like, oh hey, like we're in person, here we are, can play these games on the floor. Like, that's cool. I miss that.
It was really cool. Yeah, it was rad to see, and it made me real FOMO because we went in 2015, which is crazy, 7 years ago.
So should we fly through what was shown at Opening Night
absolutely.
Live?
I don't think Opening Night Live, which was hosted by Jeff Keighley, was like exceptional. There was one or two things I thought were really good, but for the most part, I thought it was a pretty thing.
Yeah.
Which again,
Some highlights.
COVID, we're still seeing the effects of that, and we're just off, like 2 months from E3. So
yeah.
So let's run through. Atlas Fallen looked pretty cool. This is a new game from the creators of The Surge, but it's not going to be a Souls-like. It's more a action RPG thing. So I'm thinking more like a God of War, like a more fast-paced thing. Looks cool. Lots of melee combat that you can take on alone or in co-op.
We got an update on the Callisto Protocol with actual gameplay.
Yeah, so, there was an extended sequence of you sliding down the world's longest water slide.
What did you think of that gameplay showcase?
I did not like this gameplay. I thought this gameplay was boring.
Even so, before, I don't have the footage, unfortunately, but yeah, so the second half of the gameplay was, like you said, it was almost like a thing of this character sliding down the world's longest water pipe, trying to avoid hazards. Cool. The first half of that showed gameplay of, like very dark lit environment. Cool. But there were a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff I saw which turned me off the game. Where this is like, the spiritual successor to Dead Space, we could call it that. And where Dead Space thrived, where any horror game thrives on making you feel powerless, like giving you just enough to, make it through whatever predicament's facing you. But the fact that you can like telekinesis enemies to you and throw them into a meat grinder to quickly dispose of them, you lost me. Like
100%.
Why that gameplay, that meat grinder was there the whole time? Why even bother shooting them? Like maybe there's a cooldown or something, but I thought, no, you've lost me. Like maybe this is just one room, but yeah.
I felt the exact same, and it's actually kind of interesting that you, without us speaking about it, you pinned on the exact thing that also got me, and it was in like the first 30 seconds of that gameplay. I was like, oh, he just picked up a whole enemy and tossed him across the room. I'm like, that doesn't feel survival horror.
So again, like,
that feels like I'm powerful, and that's not what I'm looking for in a survival horror.
Again, maybe this is like, that could have been the game's opening 5 minutes, whatever, and maybe it's a thing of, we just have this vertical slice of gameplay, so it's easy to judge. But I saw that, I was like, if the game gives me,
it felt far more actiony than the trailer we got at E3.
Exactly.
Put it that way. Where that felt way more like survival horror. Like, and Dead Space has the telekinesis thing too. Like, you can pull off limbs off enemies and then chuck them at other enemies. But it was never like, oh, I can just throw this guy around the room like I'm some fucking Jedi. Like, And even when I was using telekinesis in Dead Space, it was always like, there are so many enemies. I'm basically using this as a last resort if I don't have ammo.
You don't have anything else, So we'll see. I'm still keen to see how the game is. It's out in December, so it's not too far.
Yeah, that demo didn't do much for me, unfortunately. Goat Simulator 3, the sequel that skipped Goat Simulator 2. I don't know, it looks silly. I think if you enjoyed the first one, you'll probably enjoy this. It's just
more goat nonsense. How on life?
Man, this fucking demo sucked. Like, not even gonna mince words. Like, I've seen so many people who attended Gamescom and played it saying that what they played was far more impressive than this demo, but holy shit, this demo sucked. Like, I like Rick and Morty. I do not mind Justin Roiland's like humor, but the dialogue in this demo was so cringy and so so the whole idea is that your weapons are constantly talking. They like talk at you, they taunt enemies, whatever. But man, you were just on this like small platform, the demo, shooting this person that kept jumping around, and your gun was just giving them shit for like taking damage, and then just swearing all the time. Like, I was like, is this meant to be funny?
Yeah.
Like, it looked so shit. What a bad showing for that game.
Yeah, I can't say that I'm keen on that.
It's on Game Pass though, so.
What?
Hogwarts Legacy? There was like
trailer?
a short trailer. I still have very little, like, I not really caring about this game. Like,
look, I hope this game is better than I expect it to be.
Skyrim, but yeah, exactly. I'm just like, you know what? I've never been, I read the Harry Potters. I was never like a super fan of the Harry Potters, and so I'm like, even ignoring the whole nonsense that's gone on with J.K. Rowling. Like, there's nothing there that's tickling me about this game. So,
well, we'll see. Sonic Frontiers. This is interesting because, like, I'm still lukewarm in this game because I don't know. It's but one thing I will say,
game is
at least we saw different environments in the game.
Yes.
Like,
and it looked a bit more vibrant.
A bit more vibrant, because what we'd seen thus far, it was very like these lush green hills, but like that's all it was. So it turns out that there are other environments, which, again, this game's out on November 8th. We don't have to wait too long to see if it's any good or not.
The fact that Sega keeps having to come in sound and be like, we are not delaying this, is really strange. Like, they're like, hilarious. No, we will not delay this. How dare you ask for a delay? Like
come on.
Yeah.
New Tales from the Borderlands, which is the sequel to Tales from the Borderlands. I liked the first game, but I don't know. I've kind of fallen off Borderlands. Like, I love Borderlands 2. I love the pre-sequel. Love Tales from the Borderlands. I have not played Borderlands 3. I've missed Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and I don't know. Maybe I'm not at all slamming on anyone who enjoys Borderlands, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but maybe I've outgrown Borderlands, but I haven't played Borderlands 3. So can I say that? No. But I just haven't had the urge to play it. I'll get to it one day. Yeah, that's coming out October 21st, also right around the corner. Phantom Hellcat, I did not see this. So some
This
of
was
these
like very
trailers I
brief.
missed.
Yeah, very brief. This actually looked kind of cool. It looked like a third person action game, but then it switched to like a 2D perspective for platforming. Yeah, I mean it was literally like a 30-second trailer. It looked neat. Like that's about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Lords of the Fallen, which is a sequel to
Lords of Fallen.
Lords of
Yeah. Very confusing.
That's hilarious.
It had the most fucking inspired music choice
I missed this
ever.
trailer.
It was just wild. What a trailer
Nice.
this was. I never liked Lords of the Fallen. I played it a bit. Out of all the Souls clones, it's like one of the ones that felt probably the worst to me. So
Nice.
yeah.
Return to Monkey Island. Coming out
Releasing soon.
Oh my god,
yeah.
September 19th. That is
on Switch and PC.
Like 3 weeks away, just about.
Which is apparently International Talk Like a Pirate Day, which is real funny.
Ah, perfect.
Listen, I love this art style. I know this has been the like divisive portion of this game. Like
I like
a lot
it
of
as
people
well.
being like, this doesn't look like traditional Monkey Island. I think it looks lovely. And I found out the other day that the lead artist was an artist or one of the lead artists on Tearaway on PlayStation
that's
Vita,
cool.
which makes a lot of sense now because that game looks awesome too.
Yeah.
So,
Under the Waves.
I missed this completely.
Yeah,
this Dream game.
Sets underwater and focuses on a grieving diver as he ventures further into the sea. Coming 2023.
I must have been doing some work or something.
Must have napped.
But wait, so Detroit Become Human studio Quantic Dream revealed this, developed a parallel studio. So is Quantic Dream publishing this?
No idea.
Okay, that's
no
confusing.
clue.
Okay.
Lies of P. Oh my god,
Easy.
this is
game of the show.
This is the game of the show. I'm actually gonna pull up a trailer.
What's interesting is that Lies of P had been announced well before this, about a year ago. But I feel like this is its inflection point. This is when people are like, oh, this is the game. Like, this is the game that they are making, you know.
But I think it's because we also finally got like, I mean, look, I don't know if there was gameplay or proper trailers before, but it feels like this trailer was just so good. It like set the tone, created just enough intrigue, showed just enough gameplay for me to go like, oh damn, this is, yeah. So my knee-jerk reaction was like, this really looks like the child of Bloodborne in terms of setting and gameplay, and also like with the hint of Dishonored. There's something about the steampunk that just makes me think of Dishonored.
Oh yeah, definitely. But like, so at first I was like, the vibe gives me a Bloodborne vibe because it's very English Victorian era sort of thing. But yeah, you're right, like a very steampunky, Dishonored type of vibe. But the gameplay actually reminds me of Sekiro.
Yeah.
Super fast paced and super like ability driven. And okay, maybe it's because you got a prosthetic arm that is all your ability.
I mean, it's gives you that same vibe.
But like the speed and the parrying and very Sekiro vibes to me, and I'm fucking keen for this game.
And the game, it just looks good as well. Like visually, it's
There was a 6-minute gameplay trailer that came out like later on in the week.
I still need to watch it. I haven't watched it.
That looked phenomenal as well. Like you know, it sounds a bit strange, but all of the sort of Souls-like Souls-like clones we've had in the past, many of the ones that you just don't nail the sort of feel. A lot of them have come from European studios, which is maybe just indicative of how the games are made there. You know, a lot of the studios, you know, we talk about Eurojank a lot of the time. You know, there's a distinct feeling of those types of games. Whereas you've got From Software and Team Ninja, who make Nioh, who definitely have a very different style and feel to their games.
Yeah.
And the developer here, I think it's Nexion or Neo, I can't remember. They're from South Korea.
Yeah.
And this is like their first big game. They've done like some support work on an MMO, and I don't know. I just have way more faith in this quote unquote Souls clone than most others I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, it just looks phenomenal.
Yeah, it looks good. It just looks, and I love the idea of like you're playing as Pinocchio, the whole like dark setting of it all. it could be really cool, this game. It's coming out in 2023. It's
Lord,
going to
I
be on
hope it
Game Pass as
is.
well. What a
Oh,
what a
what a
treat.
get. Oops. Yeah.
Then we got Dune Awakening, which looked really cool, and then it was announced as an MMO, so I immediately turned my brain off. That's fine. It's like, it's Dune. It's come from Funcom, who, have done a bunch of MMO stuff, so I'm pretty sure it'll be fine. It's coming to consoles and PC.
Nice.
So yeah. Hardware.
New PlayStation controller, but basically it's
Mm,
PlayStation's version of the Xbox Elite controller, this is called
yeah.
the DualSense Edge.
Not a bad name. Pretty cool.
Mm.
Got all the sort of features that you'd expect from an Elite controller. You can change the length of the trigger pulls. You've got your paddle buttons at the back.
Yeah.
You've got onboard memory profiles. You can switch between them on the fly. You can edit them on the controller itself. I think the biggest thing here, which is kind of cool, is completely replaceable thumbstick modules. So you can like pull out the thumbstick module and replace it with a completely new one, which for me is only interesting because it means I can reliably replace sticks with drift, even if that means I have to buy what is likely going to be a premium controller and then pay for the little stick modules on the side.
Yeah.
But hey, I can do
Whatever.
that,
Yeah.
And, to be fair, the Xbox Elite controller, great controller, but I've heard from many people that this $200 controller like literally falls apart in a year, and that
Oh god,
sucks.
that's not good.
So if the DualSense Edge is any better than that, then maybe this will be like a primary controller for PC play as well. So that'd be neat.
Yeah.
I really wish they would I don't know what the complexities are for this, but I really wish they would get around the haptic feedback and the tactile triggers working wirelessly on PC with the DualSense, because like you have to have it plugged in for it to work, and that's not a huge like problem, but it would be nice if they figured out how
Yeah.
to get it working wirelessly.
Well, we'll see. Another
Gotham
look at
Knights?
Gotham Knights. Yawn. I hope it's good. Don't know if it will be. Not there.
That trailer wasn't terrible, but yeah,
I don't
still not
know.
convinced
This is
about this game.
going the death loop route where it's like I've seen too much of this game. Like just
Good
stop.
lord, yeah.
Just stop
My
releasing
goodness.
trailers. Where
Winds
winds
Meet?
meet.
My god, this thing had so much going on. It's an action game that again looks almost like Sekiro. At one point I was like, is this Ghost of Tsushima DLC? Because it had that like really gorgeous like backdrop vibe to it, but then like your character's running across water, they're doing like slow motion arrow shots in the air. It looks really over the top. So yeah, it's apparently set in China rather than Japan. Yeah, looks cool.
Nice.
Presented by Everstone Games. I'm not too sure who they are.
And then the big surprise slash not surprise because it was spoiled by an
Dead
early
Island 2.
listing. Dead Island 2 is alive. 8 years
9
later.
years after its
Is it
first
9
release.
years?
Yeah, 9
Wow,
years.
it's crazy.
I think it's 9 years or 7 years, one of the two. Listen,
One
the
of the
trailer
two.
was pretty cool. I thought the
Yeah.
trailer was neat. It was like this guy who just seemed like completely so bored of the whole zombie apocalypse, and he had to like go to the store to get supplies and just seemed like totally ambivalent to what was happening around him. It was a pretty neat trailer.
If it's one thing Dead Island gets right, it's their trailers.
The gameplay also looked fine. Like it looked entirely what I expected it to look like. But if it manages to nail a good balance of like just pulpy fun and a fun open world, it could be interesting.
Yeah.
The studio behind it doesn't have a great track record. They were the ones who released that Homeland Revolution game most recently, and that game kind of was not great. So we'll see, because this is obviously not Techland, who made the first Dead Island, who went on to make Dying Light. So yeah, we'll see. It's out on February 3rd, 2023. I could 100% see this game being delayed. This feels like a Saints Row thing where it's like, oh, this game got shown off really late in the year. It's coming soon. It's going to be delayed like well into the year. So yeah, I would not expect it to come out in Feb, to be entirely honest. So
and I guess that's like the main stuff from Gamescom.
yeah, that was most of the main. There was a bunch of other stuff there, but I think that was most of the main. Not a huge show, but yeah, still fun.
Cool. Last little pieces of news, because we have been on news for a good half an hour now. Sony sued for £5 billion for ripping people off on the PlayStation Store.
This is never going to go.
Accused of anti-competitive strategy. That's industry standard. Who
Yeah. So
filed this? Ex-managing director. What?
yeah. So it's a consumer rights activist in the UK called Alex Neil, and he filed it with the Competition Appeal Tribunal in the UK, and he's basically taking up the whole 30% royalty clause that Sony has and that, well, Microsoft and Valve have as well, but he's only targeting Sony in the meantime because, like, I guess you choose one target. If you win, then it sets precedent, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. But basically, Sony is accused here on Eurogamer. Sony is accused of abusing market power by imposing unfair terms and conditions on game developers and publishers, forcing prices up for consumers. The legal action states consumers have been overcharged by as much as £5 billion. Anyone in the UK who purchased content on the store since the 19th of August 2016 is included in the claim and is potentially entitled to compensation, and it is said to be 9 million people. The compensation could be anywhere between £67 to 562, excluding interest. So yeah,
I don't
interesting.
know.
Sony faced similar litigation in the US earlier this year, and it was thrown out by a judge. I don't think this will go through because I don't think, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not sure how you can claim anti-competition on, a royalty fee that is first industry standard, as much as
Mm,
we maybe don't like that it's that high. But it's also on a PlayStation store that you do not have to release on.
yeah. I don't
So,
know.
yeah.
I mean, we could talk about this for hours, speaking from different angles and different circumstances. But like, okay, if Sony's royalties are too high and every other industry player, Steam and Xbox, is too high, you know what's going to happen? They'll lower the royalties, and then the price of games will go up, regardless. So I don't know. Like, I don't agree. Given that Epic charges what, like 12%, something stupidly low. But like
Mhm.
you said, like if you're a developer, you don't have to release your stuff on Sony. You have to release it on
There's
Xbox or
a there's
anything.
a lot of there's a lot of good explanation here from Richard Richard Hogue. He's
Oh
the
yeah.
host of Video Games Industry Legal Podcast Virtual Legality, so an actual lawyer.
Oh yeah.
He's just explaining, he's breaking down why this is a tough case. Essentially, like, you've got the issue that the transactions were made voluntarily by consumers, the prices are mirrored across the industry, the 30% cut is mirrored by other market participants. There's no indication that lowering the 30% cut would actually affect the consumer, which we've actually seen evidence of because Valve decreases their cut for developers based on the number of copies sold, but that
Uh,
never trickles down to consumers. The same
mm,
thing for Epic Game Store. Their cut is much lower, and we've never seen that reflected in prices on the Epic Game Store. Um, so, yeah, the fact that this case hinges on consumers are being screwed just doesn't really hold water from
mm,
from looking out. But we'll see. I mean, if this goes through, this is a big problem first for Sony and then for Microsoft and Valve.
yeah.
Um,
It'll follow
so
on all of them.
it'll be
So
an interesting one to watch, regardless.
we'll
Yeah.
see. My word, sorry, there's a lot of PlayStation news this week.
Mm,
But this is some cool news at least. The Last of Us remake on PS5 will have extensive accessibility options. So you'll even be
mm,
able to, quote unquote, feel dialogue through your controller. It was pretty cool. Like, I think The Last of Us Part 2 got high praise for being a very accessible game, which think about how that game looks and how complex it can be, making it palatable
mm,
for more players like, good on Naughty Dog. And it seems they're just keeping up on that train by including even more accessibility options with, I guess the functionality of the DualSense, given that it's got
mm.
some dope vibration functionality. I don't know what it'll feel like, but yeah,
I think it's cool.
interesting
Yeah,
to see.
like you said, I think The Last of Us 2 like sets a standard for this sort of thing, and
Yeah.
good on Naughty Dog for putting in a lot of work. I mean, for The
Mm,
Last of Us 2 to have such an extensive library of accessibility options
mm,
in a game that was that complex already is pretty
yeah.
impressive. And you could argue that, oh, this is the real draw for the remake of The Last of Us Part 1. And yes, a lot of other games have released this stuff for free, as patches, but I think the suite being offered here is massive.
Mm.
Um, I do really like this idea of like using the controller vibration to emphasize subtitles so you can get
Mm.
more of a feeling
Yeah,
of
more of a
delivery
connection,
and
yeah.
emotional intent to it. Like I would love to see, I'm not someone who has trouble hearing, but
Mm.
whether the vibration can mirror something or at least give some more sensation than just reading
Yeah,
subtitles, which is cool.
very
Apparently,
cool.
it was a feature that started as a prototype but ended up being quite popular, so they continued work on it.
Okay.
So quite a cool thing,
Yeah,
I think.
so we can check it out next week. And then last piece of news, sad face. We spoke about this at the top of the
Yeah.
episode. Netflix has cancelled the Resident Evil series after one season. I love the strap. You are dead.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah. So yeah, we acknowledged the Resident Evil show not good. Like, but it was bad, but good bad. Like I enjoyed watching it. There was enough nonsense in there for me to keep going to the next episode.
It's a beautiful train wreck. I enjoyed watching it. I had a great time. I, you know, it wasn't a hate watch, if that makes any sense. I wasn't watching it because I hated it. It
Yeah.
was like, I know this is bad, but at the same time, there is some enjoyment factor from it,
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
it's a bummer.
dead.
But
Well,
Netflix doing this to its properties, so
is
yeah.
Resident Evil dead for good? Definitely not. It'll come back.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, games wise, it could not be in a stronger position, I
No.
think. So yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That's all the gaming news this week.